Namaste friends, and welcome to Ayurvedic Lifestyle Tips with Lala. In today's episode, we'll be doing tongue diagnoses. This is a fun and really insightful exercise and practice that will really give you insight into your own experience. Ayurveda is a science of self-healing, and in order for us to start this process of self-healing, we need to have self-awareness. Looking at our tongue every day can help with this self-awareness. So as a practitioner, when a client comes to us, what we look at with the tongue to determine their prakriti, their original constitution, we're looking at the shape of the tongue and the size of the tongue and sort of the fleshiness of the tongue and whether it's pointed or not. As you perhaps can imagine, a Vata tongue is more pointed and narrow. A Pitta tongue is medium. Actually, that one is a little bit more pointed and has a reddish color. And a Kapha tongue, like Kapha people, is a little bit more fleshy and full. It's a bigger tongue. So that determines more the prakriti of the person. And then to look at the vikruti, we're looking at the things that change on the tongue. So that's the contouring. It's whether the tongue has cracks. Is it deflated in certain areas or is it elevated? Does it have scalloping on the sides? So these are some of the things that you as an individual can start to look at in the morning, and that will give you signs too, whether your food is digesting well, whether there's some deep-seated fear and anxiety. And so we'll go over what some of these things are. We'll use my tongue as an example. And my tongue here, when I stick it out, you can see is a Pitta tongue. There's a little bit of a light coating, which there should be on the tongue, right? The tongue is a organ of where we perceive taste. And if the tongue is very dry, that will make it challenging for us to taste food and life experiences. So we want a little bit of a coating, but not a severe coating. If we see that, which I'll address also, that's ama, that's toxicity that's built up. And we definitely don't want that. Then we would want to address the underlying reason why that is occurring on the tongue, and that's toxicity in the digestive system. So if you see on my tongue, it has a pretty much like a pinkish color, which is the normal color of the tongue. I tend to have a little bit of scalloping on the sides. And if you see that, I see that quite often with clients, that means that you have poor assimilation. You're not digesting your food well. So then we can, depending on which constitution that's out of balance, we can address that with some spices. That could be cooling spices, but sort of carminatives and dipanas, which means that they sort of enkindle the digestion. For Pitta, we want to use the cooler ones. And then for Vata and Kapha, we want to have it a little bit more spicy. So if there's deep cracks down the center line relates to the spine, and the deep cracks tells us that there is Vata in the spine area. It could also be that there's a deviation in the actual spinal column. So that's something to notice also. Just to really know this is that the tongue is actually an upside down person. So the tip and the front part is the head. And this more sort of center part towards the front relates to the heart, and the more back part is the colon area. As you can see here on my tongue, when I was 18 years old, I got a piercing in my heart area. Little did I know that that's where the area that it related to. But I did have a lot of confusion in that department of my life. I later took that out and it healed somewhat, but still, just know that when you're getting these piercings, is that it does relate to internal organs. So just have that awareness. There can also be areas that are elevated or deflated. That means that the organs that relates to in that area have been impacted. So the sides here are the lung area, and they can sometimes be, a depression there, which means that there's a disorder with the lungs, so we need to nourish the lungs. So very helpful tools. As far as the coating, if there is a gray brownish coating, that's a Vata coating. It relates to Vata. If it's yellow or green, that's Pitta. And if it's a yogurt type coating, usually a little heavier, that's Kapha. Then, as I mentioned, we want to work with those digestive spices to enkindling that acne so that the food can digest better. When we scrape the tongue, we are cleaning the bacteria off of the tongue, the unhealthy ones that we don't want in there, because clearly we do want the healthy microbes in there. But the tongue scraping helps us to remove the unhealthy ones and also helps clean and freshen the breath. But it doesn't clean, and support that healthy acne. So we need to address that in the actual digestive system with the herbs. So stick your tongue out in the morning and pay attention to, before you scrape the tongue, before you start brushing your teeth, what does your tongue look like? Is there coating? Is there scalloping? Are there cracks? For some clients, it's been a deep-seated crack. I mean, it's cracks. It's amazing what you see on that tongue. Then that means that Vata has gone real deep, right? It's become a chronic thing. So then we really got to bring in some nourishing herbs and foods and lifestyle practices to really support the nourishment on a much deeper level. So I hope some of these kind of insights were helpful to you, and that you really use this looking at your tongue as a tool to give you insight into the foods and the things that you're doing in your life. Are they digesting well? Are you taking in those experiences well? And if not, then start shifting your habits so that you can start to see a more healthy tongue being reflected. So I hope that this was helpful to you, and I'll see you next time.